One of the driest places on Earth has flooded for the first time in half a century.
One of the driest places on Earth has flooded for the first time in half a century. The Sahara Desert has been known for a very long time as one of the hottest and driest places on Earth. What if I told you that this huge sand sea used to be green with lakes, rivers, and even forests? Imagine how shocking it must have been when this huge desert turned into the empty nothingness it is today, only 6,000 years ago. But there's an even stranger twist. New stories say the Sahara is now flooding. How is this possible? When the desert was completely dry, how did it get to have water in places no one would have thought? The story of how the Sahara changed is one of the most amazing changes in the world's environment. Let's find out what's really going on with this shocking change. The Sahara Desert is something we all recognize. Endless stretches of golden sand, scorching temperatures, and harsh conditions. It wasn't always this way, though. Did you know? Picture the Sahara from about 6,000 years ago. It was a green, lush place with grasslands, rivers, lakes, and woods. The Sahara wasn't always a dry, empty land. It used to be a prosperous land where people lived in the past. It might be tough to believe, but it's true. Think about going through a green area where cattle are grazing next to rivers. When it was green, the Sahara was very different from the desert we know today. These amazing changes can be seen in the drawings on rocks that are spread out in the northern part of Africa. Giraffes, hippos, and other animals that don't fit in the desert are shown in these paintings. Before the dry conditions took over, they were part of a healthy environment that lived in the area. It's even more interesting to learn about the geology behind this change. Deep-sea silt cores found by scientists are strong proof that the Sahara used to be wetter. It is clear from these cores dug up from the ocean floor that there was a lot less dust in the air during the green Sahara time. Because there was so much more water in the air, lakes and rivers could form. Some were so big with fresh water that they could fit all of North America's Great Lakes inside them. Northern Africa wasn't the empty land we think of today during this time. It was a lush, alive place. After that, everything changed. The temperature changed around 6,000 years ago, and the Sahara, which used to be very fertile, began to dry out. Planet Earth's natural rhythms, especially its axial tilt, are mainly to blame for this huge change. The tilt of the Earth isn't always the same. It changes over time, causing big changes in how much energy different parts of the planet get. As the northern hemisphere got more sunshine, the temperature began to rise. As the temperature rose, the area's water started to disappear. It rained less, and the land that had been lush with plants dried out. It took thousands of years for this change to happen slowly. But soon, the Sahara went from being a green, alive place to the huge, dry desert we know today. The Sahara changed because of this natural change in the Earth's tilt and how it affected the temperature. As the area got drier, the lush plants started to die off. The grasses and woods that used to cover the land were replaced by sand and rocks. The Sahara turned into a desert because it didn't get enough rain to keep the plants alive. Even though it took a long time, the desert we see today was formed. But the change in the tilt of the Earth wasn't the only thing that made this happen. It also had something to do with the Earth's climate patterns. Because of changes in Earth's climate, the area got drier and drier until the Sahara's green time ended. What if I told you that this process is still going on? Yes, that is true. The Sahara used to be green, and now scientists are seeing signs that it might be coming back to life in ways no one expected. There have already been big changes in the Sahara, but the story is far from over. In fact, the Sahara used to change into a desert, and now there are signs that it is changing into something unexpected. The Sahara Desert is more than just sand and dust right now. The weather in this land has changed in unthinkable ways, but it still has secrets hidden below the surface. There's more to the Sahara than meets the eye, even though we think of it as a place that is always hot and dry. After being a dry desert for thousands of years, the Sahara is now showing signs of rain, which hasn't happened in thousands of years. And this change is truly amazing. Besides that, the changes we see now could help us learn more about not only the Sahara but also other desert environments around the world. Even though we know how it went from green to dry, what's going on right now is the real adventure. Could the Sahara change once more? Why does this change matter? And what is causing it? The answer is buried deep in the Saharan sandhills. Wait until you hear what's happening now. It might make you rethink everything you thought you knew about this amazing desert. From climate change to people changing it, the future of the Sahara might surprise you. Stay with us as we talk about how this huge desert is changing right in front of our eyes and how it might soon look very different. What lies beneath the Sahara? The Sahara Desert looks like a never-ending sea of sand, but there's a lot more to it than meets the eye. Think about this. There are only about 25% sand mounds in the Sahara. The rest of the land is made up of gravel fields, salt flats, plateaus, and cracked clay. These are all parts of this huge desert, just like the famous sand dunes. There's a world below the surface that is just waiting to be found. Imagine that you are in the Sahara with nothing but golden sand around you. But there's a different story going on just a few feet below you. For a very long time, the Sahara was not the empty desert it is now. The earth below holds onto the marks of a world that was much wetter and greener. Imagine walking through old history with fossilized tree trunks in the sand that show how this land used to be covered in forests. It gets worse after that. Shark teeth, which are fossils of marine life from millions of years ago, have been found in the Moroccan desert. This suggests that the area used to be part of a large inland sea. But that's not all there is to it. The Sahara holds the stories of people who lived a long time ago. Tim Gad is one of the Roman bases that is buried in the desert. It was left empty more than 1,000 years ago. Archaeologists found clay pots, coins, and even busts of Cleopatra when they first started digging here. This shows that the desert, which is now thought of as a barren area, used to be full of life and trade. It's amazing to think that these ancient people lived and thrived right where the endless sand dunes are now. They went about their daily lives without realizing that people would one day dig up their stories from deep in the ground and read them. Even stranger are the skeletons that have been buried in the Sahara. Shark teeth aren't the only things from the sea that are buried in the sand. Deep in the desert, fossils of sea snakes, giant catfish, and other sea creatures from millions of years ago have been found. Imagine that ancient animals that used to swim in the ocean are still alive in a place that we now call a desert. The Sahara, which is now so dry that it's hard to picture life ever thriving there, used to be a huge, wet area. Scientists have put together this amazing story of change, which shows that the desert used to be a nursery for sea life before time and climate change turned it into the desert we know today. So why does this matter so much? It's not just about artifacts or skeletons. Since these findings, we know that the Sahara has a lot more to offer than we thought. This desert used to be home to a whole other world with towns and seas that were underwater. Scientists are still finding out more about how the Sahara is changing. It's a mystery that makes us question everything we thought we knew about this area. Just when we think we understand the whole story, things get even more interesting. Think about a desert that used to be wet but is now growing much faster. It's not just the Sahara that needs our attention. Changes in the environment that happen around the world might be linked to the growth of this old desert. The answer is just around the corner. What if the Sahara's quick changes and fast growth aren't just a natural cycle? Is there something much bigger going on here that might change the way we always think about deserts? Today, let's look at what's going on in the Sahara and why scientists are raising the alarm. From green oasis to arid desert, over many years, the Sahara has changed a great deal. There used to be fields, rivers, and lakes on the land that is now a sea of sand dunes that never ends. But how did this change happen? It took place over time. There wasn't sand all over the Sahara overnight. Over time, the land slowly dried out. The wind took over as the trees slowly died. The wind blew away the fine dirt that held everything together. Since there were no plant roots to hold the ground together, the sand began to move around. Change took a long time to happen. One interesting thing about the Sahara is that it's not all made up of sand. In fact, those famous dunes are only found in a small part of the desert. There are gravel areas, salt flats, and even plateaus in the rest. Even though they are not as well known as the sand dunes, these traits are what the desert is really made of. Desertification is the process of making once fertile land into a desert. It didn't happen naturally. People sped it up. When you think of the Sahara, you might picture a place that has never been touched by people. In reality, though, people have been a big part of the desert's growth. People have worked the land, let their animals graze on it too much, and cut down trees for fuel and building materials. Over the years, these acts made the soil weaker and cut down on plants that help keep the soil moist. The desert grew faster than ever because there were no trees to hold the ground together. Along with that, there was another problem. The Sahara only gets about 3 inches of rain a year on average. Thus, Nature did its part to dry out the area, but people's actions made it worse. It is called desertification when land that used to be good for growing crops dries out. And it's not just the Sahara's fault. Desertification is also happening in other parts of the world, such as the Sahel region, which is just south of the Sahara. Overgrazing, cutting down trees, and even urbanization, when towns grow into rural areas, have all turned land that used to be useful into wastelands that can't grow anything. The Sahara is getting bigger because of how quickly it is becoming a desert. Every 100 years, the desert grows by about 10%. Scientists are still trying to figure out how to end the fight that has been going on for hundreds of years. The problem of drought is real and needs to be fixed right away. It's also not happening slowly anymore. Millions of people live in places that could become desert because of it. Even scarier is the fact that this problem is getting worse as the climate changes and more extreme weather events happen. Desertification doesn't just dry up land. It also affects the ways that people who grow, graze animals, or do other activities on land make a living. As the Sahara moves south, it forces people into areas that are harder to live in and threatens their way of life. There is still hope, though. Even though the Sahara has been slowly growing, there are plans to stop it from turning into a desert and bring the land back to life. The goal is to stop the desert from growing even bigger. A lot of work is being done to plant trees and bring back plants to places that have been damaged. And the best part is that people other than experts are working on it, too. People in the area are also working together to try to bring life back to the land. What does this mean for the future of the Sahara and the areas around it? The answer is in the next part of the story. Let's look more closely at how these repair projects are going and the creative ways that people are taking to stop desertification. The Great Sahara Flood. The Sahara Desert has always been a well-known image of arid land. It is very hot in the Sahara. There are huge sand dunes everywhere, and it doesn't rain very often. It has been hundreds of years since the last rainy season in the Sahara, but something strange has been going on for the past few years. There were floods in a desert that is known for being so dry that it doesn't rain very often. For many, this is a shocking turn of events. How could it happen that a place that is meant to be dry and empty would suddenly flood? It's not simple, but the answer is very interesting. The Sahara is where the changes a lot more often than we thought. Some natural and man-made things can keep the desert the same, but other things can make it move and change all the time. First, the amount of wetness in the air has grown in importance over the last few years. Over time, the Sahara has been one of the driest places on Earth. However, it has also rained there. It only seems to rain harder and more often now, especially in places where there wasn't water before. It's not just raining this time. The edges of the Sahara are moving, which makes the change harder to understand. Over thousands of years, the desert has slowly grown. However, when it rains, the desert has shrunk. This is why dry parts of the Sahara quickly get wet with rain when the monsoon patterns change or the amount of water in the air changes. This makes lakes and pools that only last for a short time. Little pools of water come out of nowhere in a desert that has been dry for hundreds of years. They stay there for a short time. It shows that the Sahara's temperature is shifting and that its edges may not be as solid as we thought. They are very interested in this event, and it is clear that the Sahara's temperature is changing. Pictures sent from space have helped scientists keep up with these changes as they happen. They found some really cool stuff. Some parts of the desert that were thought to be dry have been seen to be full of water. From space, it looks like these places have been dry for hundreds of years, but are now getting a lot of rain. We never thought this change could make the area so different. What does this really mean for the Sahara's tomorrow? It's possible that the desert might become a little friendlier to living things, which is exciting. But we need to keep in mind that this change won't last. It is still a desert in the Sahara, and it looks like this rain will only last for a short time. But we should still keep an eye on what's going on. It might instead lead to something much bigger, the chance to turn the Sahara back into a green place. Could you show us how the desert changes from a dry place to one that is green and could grow crops? The Sahara used to have lakes, rivers, and fields. Could it get some of those things back? It might seem like a far-off dream to think about the Sahara being green, but it's becoming more and more real. A lot of work is being done on projects like the Great Green Wall to keep the Sahara from becoming a desert and bring back some of its beauty. The goals of these projects are to keep dry sand from taking over and bring back some of the plants that used to do well there. In some parts of Africa, that Great Green Wall is already moving forward. It could bring the Sahara back to life, even if it's only in a few spots, if it has the right tools. What does this mean for the people who live close to the Sahara? Are they finally ready for the big step forward? This weather change in the Sahara could give people hope who live in places like the Sahel, where erosion has caused a lot of trouble. Millions of people are having a hard time because of land loss, lack of water, and bad weather. The idea of making the desert green could directly help them. It's still too early to tell what will happen, but the thought that the Sahara might change is exciting, and the changes could last for a long time. There is now more water in the Sahara, but not everyone is sure this will last. There's still a lot of work to be done on the Great Green Wall, which is a big and dangerous project. Scientists are still trying to figure out what these trends in climate change will mean in the long run. But one thing is certain, the Sahara story isn't over yet. This story is about how things change, people stay the same, and how nature can grow and change in strange ways. Everyone is thinking about one thing as the Sahara continues to change. Could this big change in the desert mean a new era for life in the area? Is it only a short break before the desert takes back the land again? Stay tuned as we talk about what might happen to the Sahara in the future and how that might affect the temperature of the whole world. The future of the Sahara Desert is more than just a huge area of hot, dry sand. Its growing size is one of the most important problems we face today. As the desert grows, it becomes a bigger danger to the areas around it, especially the Sahel, which is a semi-arid area just south of the Sahara. With more than 100 million people living in this area, the land and water supplies are under a lot of stress. Overgrazing, cutting down trees, and climate change have all sped up the desert spread, leaving these people with damaged land, no food, and having to move. In reaction to this worsening crisis, North African countries have started the Great Green Wall, a big and risky project that has the support of the UN and other global groups. The huge goal of this green barrier is to stop the Sahara from spreading even more and to restore ecosystems along the southern edge of the desert. The Great Green Wall goes through 20 African countries and is aimed at the Sahel area, which is more likely to become desert. The project's simple but important goal is to repair ecosystems and plant trees along a strip of land that will naturally block the desert from getting worse. By planting trees in the area again, the hope is that the desert will not grow as quickly and that people will be able to adjust to the new weather. It uses both old and new ways of doing things for its project. Building half-moons, which are water-retaining basins meant to catch and hold rain, is one way to do this. This gives plants a much-needed chance to grow and live in the harsh Sahel conditions. This method has been used for hundreds of years in some parts of Africa. As part of the restoration effort, it is now being used on a bigger scale. Along with these ancient methods, scientists are working with the locals to plant sorghum and millet, two native plants that can survive in dry conditions. These hardy crops are important for local farming and for bringing back the variety of plants and animals that the area used to have. The project for the Great Green Wall has had good success so far. It has already been possible to restore tens of thousands of hectares, and people are starting to see the results of this work. Farmers in the area now have access to better land and more stable water sources. Wildlife can also find safety in the restored areas. Also, the project has given local communities more power by creating jobs, and it gives hope to the millions of people who depend on the land for their survival. But even though the Great Green Wall gives us hope, we should keep in mind that the Sahara will not be fully green again for a long time. Scientists think that the Sahara could return to a more fertile state someday, just like it did thousands of years ago, because of the natural cycles of Earth's axial tilt and changes in the amount of water in the air. Whether this will happen soon, though, is a whole different story. Fighting desertification is an ongoing process that includes more than just planting trees. It's also about making sure that the land will be able to last for a long time. As we've seen, the Sahara Desert went from being a lush green paradise to the huge dry desert we know today. This is a story of the power of nature and the effect of people. The Sahara has secrets hidden beneath its sands. From the time when past civilizations thrived there to the present day, when people are trying to stop it from becoming a desert, there is hope for the future, whether it comes from natural trends or clever people. The Great Green Wall and other projects are part of the fight to bring back what was lost. Who knows, maybe one day the Sahara will be green again. The fight against erosion is very hard, but the progress made shows how important it is to work together, be creative, and be strong. But only time will tell if the sands of the Sahara will once again turn into farmland. What is certain, though, is that this story is still going on and everyone is watching.